In Atlanta, it's much more simple. It's Arthur Blank and his right-hand man who has no accountability. Great. We talked about this yesterday. And I like Rich McKay, but I still have to call it as I see it. Rich McKay's got the greatest job in football. He's got a big title. He's the head of the competition committee, and he has no accountability. He has none. Falcons are a train wreck. Oh, wow. Arthur, what are we going to do? I don't know, Rich. You tell me what to do. I'd fire you, but then I wouldn't have anybody to tell me what to do. So we see it with so many teams where you have an executive who is insulated from all accountability, who is there elbow to elbow. Not GM Terry Francona after they fired head coach Arthur Smith. Rich McKay, elbow to elbow with Arthur Blank yesterday. Rich ain't going nowhere, baby. So they said yesterday in this hour and a half, that's the other thing too. Yeah. You got to know when to bring the hook out. You got to know when to end it. Sometimes you let it go on too long and the owner says something's a problem for himself and everyone else. So what Arthur Blank and or Rich McKay said yesterday is the only timetable is to do it correctly. GM Terry Francona will be heavily involved in the process going forward. I still get the feeling they'll be willing to marginalize and or sacrifice him if that's what's needed to get the coach they want. So for now, we're keeping him. But I remember when the Jets wanted Bill Cowher back in, I think, 2009, 2010, somewhere around there. 2009, the year they hired Rex. Cowher wanted Tannenbaum out. Mike Tannenbaum, GM, wanted his own people. Well, Jets wouldn't do it. Okay, then that's that. If the coach that Arthur Blank decides he wants, with the input of Rich McKay, wants to move on from Terry Francona is going to be moved on from. So they're kind of that's just my take on the absence of Francona from yesterday's press conference, for example. And the fact that he's still there, even though he's as responsible for Desmond Ridder as Arthur Smith was. So, Charean, I don't know how attractive this job is either, but at least you don't have a bunch of people to worry about. You have two, Arthur Blank and Rich McKay.
Yeah, it was really weird, Mike, and it's almost like Terry Francona has no role in that team. And if I'm Terry Francona, I'm probably looking to go elsewhere if possible, but I don't know where he would get another job. But yeah, I don't think that his status is set in stone at this point. If they hire a Bill Belichick or a Jim Harbaugh, is that coach going to want that GM? And the coach will be, if it is a Jim Harbaugh or Bill Belichick, the coach is going to be the face. The coach is going to be the decision maker. It was just like Sean Payton last year going to Denver. You know what? If he hadn't wanted the GM there, the GM would have been gone. And that's going to be the same situation with this team. And wherever those two guys end up, they're going to be the ones to decide whether the GM's going to stay or go. And they may stay for a year and then go. But it is interesting that Terry Francona wasn't at the press conference, had no voice in what was going on, and I think he should have been there. So I don't know what's going to happen with the Falcons. When I look at the team, they have no quarterback. They won too many games. I struggle with this team a little bit. Can you win? They certainly have some weapons. They didn't use them very well this year in Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson. I thought they did a really poor job of using those two weapons that they have out there. But I'm with you. I don't know that this looks like a very attractive job other than you have two people to satisfy, and that's the owner and Rich McKay.
Well, and Chris and I were talking about this yesterday. It's not all that hard to envision what was happening in the owner's suite during games this year when Bijan Robinson isn't being used the way that he could have been or should have been. Kyle Pitts has been MIA relative to what we all thought his production level would be. And what will Rich McKay and Terry Francona say under those circumstances when the team is struggling? Man, why aren't we using Bijan Robinson more? Why are we doing this more? Why aren't we doing that more? And now, it was nearly 100 minutes, and I jumped through it last night trying to find the Lamar Jackson stuff that we're going to talk about momentarily, because I never want to trust someone else's characterization of which quotes are important and which ones aren't. I want to hear it myself. I want to see it myself when it's something that may be nuanced and difficult and detailed. But my takeaway was from some of the parts I've already heard, and I'm going to listen to all of it today. They're blaming it on the coaching of Desmond Ridder, not the selection of Desmond Ridder. And that may want that may cause ownership to want the next coach to at least give Desmond Ridder a chance, even if the new coach will say, I've seen enough, and he can be a backup, but he can't be the starter. So, look, these jobs become open for a reason. Coaches get fired because the results aren't good enough. What can you do in 1 year to turn it around? We've seen Andy Reid turn the Chiefs around from the moment he showed up. We saw Jim Harbaugh turn the 49ers around the moment he showed up. We saw DeMeco Ryans turn the Texans around the moment he showed up. It's not impossible, but you need to be in a position where you can attract somebody, Charean, who's good enough to do it. You know you're a bad team, but you better be able to attract someone who sees the opportunity to win, notwithstanding the things that helped get the last coach fired.
And sometimes, Mike, that's as simple as giving them enough money to say, we'll give you more money than anybody else. Sometimes that works. But whatever works to get that coach that you want, you have to make that work. Whatever the coach wants. If it's a coach you are positive you can win with, you go get that coach. And you do whatever is necessary, give him however much power he needs, however much money he needs, whatever he needs, the resources and the money to make that work. So, I look at these jobs. I don't know that I would want any of them. They all have flaws because you're right. When you fire a head coach, there's a reason you fire the head coach, because you weren't very good and you've got a lot of problems within the organization. And that's what these teams face right now. So, if I'm looking at a team like the Texans that could turn it around in 1 year, I don't know. Maybe the Chargers, simply because they have the quarterback in place, but they're so far over the salary cap right now that they're going to have to cut a lot of these players and really do it on the cheap with some young players coming up. They all have flaws, Mike, and that's why they're in the situation they're in.
Yeah, somebody over the weekend told me about the Chargers. Justin Herbert makes it very attractive, but once you start scratching the surface there's a lot of dysfunction that goes overlooked and unnoticed. Yep. One of the things about being the B team in L.A. is you don't get scrutinized the same way the Rams do, and there's a lot there that may make it unattractive. And that's why when it comes to Bill Belichick, I continue to say we need to watch the 14 teams who are still playing, depending upon how things go with one of those teams, which inevitably will lose. 6 teams will lose this weekend. A decision may be made to go get Bill Belichick. And if you're Belichick and you're looking at playoff roster versus team that needs a lot of work, you're going to be more interested in a team that is already set up to win. And you don't have to worry about who am I going to get to be the quarterback. Do I trust myself as an evaluator of personnel? I got the personnel. I just have to go coach them, which is why, could be one of the reasons why Jerry Jones failed to give a ringing endorsement to Mike McCarthy when he was asked about it on Sunday. That is a very keen point of interest in these parts as the offseason unfolds. Will Bill Belichick end up with Charean's Dallas Cowboys? We can only hope. Oh, common link, Roger Staubach back to Navy. It all makes sense. He used to catch passes from Staubach. It's all maybe coming together. All right, I mentioned Lamar Jackson and Arthur Blank. Let's hear from Blank yesterday. He was asked again. He talked about it last year, right after they didn't make a run at Lamar Jackson, when he was available to anybody who wanted to sign him to an offer sheet, sign him to a sheet that the Ravens won't match. You give up 2 first-round picks. It's a no-brainer. You got a franchise quarterback. We are a competitive team. We're relevant. We're maybe competing for a championship. He was asked about it again yesterday. Let's have a listen to how Arthur Blank justified and rationalized the failure to pursue Lamar Jackson when he was available last March.
I don't think so. I think that, it's easy to say yes, given his year. He's obviously an incredible player. We did not have the cap space. I think the coaching staff felt, coaching personnel, all of us felt collectively, but certainly Coach and Terry, that, we felt we had an answer in Ridder, a younger player without, that kind of contract that would have kept us from actually building the team we wanted to build. And so I think, the result of that thinking was that let's stay the course. Let's continue to pursue the vision that we have now, continue to build a roster, build this foundation offensively and defensively, and go from there. It's not a criticism of Lamar. You can debate whether or not he would have really been available or not. Who knows? whether they would have matched whatever offers are on the table. I don't know that. I'm not sure. But certainly a great player, for sure. Had a great year.
Sometimes I set up the sound perfectly. Sometimes I blow it. I blew that one. I should have said blank was asked a specific question. Does he regret not pursuing Lamar Jackson? And he said, I don't think we do. Now, here's the reality. And we can parse through the words. What he said back in April, a little bit different than what he said yesterday. Back in April, it was about we didn't want to commit 25% of the salary cap to one guy. Well, that's like $56 million in cap dollars for this year. The Ravens got him for around $22.15 million in cap dollars. So that's a cop-out. You can make it work under the cap if you have a great player that you're going to go get. The injury history was cited in April. All he mentioned yesterday was we didn't have the cap space. Well, you did. You could have made it work if you wanted to make it work. You just didn't want to make it work. And Charean, this is all being said against the background of a collusion grievance that is playing out with owners being questioned under oath. Blank is surely going to be one of them if he hasn't been already. And this is all about the broader power play between management and labor over guaranteed contracts. How many players are going to get fully guaranteed contracts? We don't like veteran players to get 5-year fully guaranteed contracts. Jimmy Haslam was a pariah for giving Deshaun Watson one. That's a big part of this whole Lamar Jackson dance. We can't forget that. Because if they would have moved heaven and earth to get Lamar Jackson, if they would have crafted an offer the Ravens didn't refuse, they wouldn't have been holding a press conference yesterday to announce the firing of Arthur Smith. They'd have been getting ready for the playoffs.
Yeah. There's no question about that, Mike. And nobody went after Lamar Jackson. And, I mean, I think we're all sitting here questioning that decision when he's going to be the runaway winner of the MVP award. He was the best player in the NFL this season. I don't think there's any argument about that except from fans of other teams who think their player deserves it more. So, they did explore trading for Deshaun Watson. Lamar Jackson's a better player by far than Deshaun Watson, and frankly, would have cost you less money because you wouldn't have had to probably give him the fully guaranteed contract, but you could have given him more guaranteed money and gotten him. And you're right. They'd be in the playoffs getting ready for a playoff game instead of firing a head coach, Mike, if they had done what they should have done and tried to sign Lamar Jackson. Now, he's right. The Ravens might have matched that, but at least you could have said that you tried. You tried everything. You could sit here and tell your fans, we tried everything to get Lamar Jackson. We signed him to an offer sheet. It didn't work out, but we tried. But they can't say that today. They haven't tried everything to be a winning football team. So if I'm a Falcons fan, I'm a little disturbed by that they didn't do that. The fact that they might stick with Desmond Ridder the way they talk, that it was coaching more than Desmond Ridder. I don't know as a coach, again, as we're talking about, if I look at this team and go, is this really where I want to go if they're not going to be fully committed to winning in this thing?
That's the NFL's version of the big lie. Every owner will say that every given year they want to win the Super Bowl and they're going to do whatever it takes to win the Super Bowl. There are limits to what they will do because there is a broader apple cart they don't want to upset. They don't want the balance of power to shift toward the players generally. Even Jerry Jones, I think there are limits. He'll say, "Oh, you'd be surprised about the size of the check that I would write if it would guarantee me a Super Bowl." That has a caveat, and the caveat is, I will not push the envelope as far as I possibly can within the confines of the CBA, guaranteed contracts, other things that I can do to lure players away from other teams. I won't do that if it undermines the broader business model, because the reality is only one team wins the Super Bowl, 31 teams lose, all 32 are winning financially, and they don't want to do anything that makes it harder for them to have massive profits each and every year. And that's just reality. And I know that it's hard. If you're a football purist, you don't want to hear that the business concerns overcome football concerns. They do. Lamar Jackson would be the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons right now. Or at a minimum, the Ravens would have had to match an offer that would have been structured in a way to make it very difficult for them to match it if Arthur Blank prioritized winning over not getting dirty looks at cocktail parties from his fellow billionaires. Plain and simple. That's my belief. That's my belief.
Yeah.
And if I was wrong, if I am wrong, Lamar Jackson would either be the quarterback of the Falcons or they would have forced the Ravens to pay more than they ultimately paid by putting an offer on the table that the Ravens would have had no choice but to match.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I have no doubts about that. And I think the Ravens would have tried to match that offer, obviously, but maybe it's structured in a way, as you said, Mike, that it's impossible for them to match. And the Falcons end up with the MVP. Can you imagine if the Falcons had the MVP this season? I mean, they may have the number one seed with the offensive weapons they have on that team. Lamar Jackson and Bijan Robinson together, throwing to Kyle Pitts. That would have been an amazing offense. Could they have gotten it done with Arthur Smith? I think they would have at least won that division. That's the other thing we don't talk about is what a bad division that is. They could have easily won the division and had an opportunity to do something in the playoffs if you have a good quarterback. If you have a good quarterback, Mike, and you're in the playoffs, you got a chance to win. I don't care what seed you are, you've got a chance to win if you have a good quarterback. The Chiefs are not the number one seed this year. They're not the favorites to win the Super Bowl. I tell you what, they've got a chance because they have Patrick Mahomes. It would have been the same thing with the Falcons with Lamar Jackson.
And they would have had a chance to be the one seed when you're in that horrible division. All due respect to the Buccaneers, Saints, and, well, no respect to the Panthers. All due respect to the Buccaneers and the Saints. But you're the one seed. 49ers got to come to you. Oh, wait, can Lamar Jackson play against the 49ers? Yes, he can. Yes, we know that. He can. So anytime, and you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it, folks, especially right around the time that they want you to renew your season tickets. You're going to hear that we want to win the Super Bowl. We're going to do everything we can to win the Super Bowl. Just remember where you heard it. They really don't, to the extent that they have to do something that's going to make the other members of Club Oligarch upset with them. Jimmy Haslam found out the hard way. Arthur Blank stayed away from that high voltage problem he would have had if he had gone after Lamar Jackson. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.